Hello, hello, okay. Am I on? Okay. Good evening, everybody. I hope you all are well. I hope you all got vaccine. I got my vaccine, the second dose, and so in a way I feel much better now, more protected. But it was a little tough. The second dose was really hard on me. It went on for like about 6 days, and I'm just beginning to feel a little bit better. So I hope you all got your vaccine, and I hope there is a new era now, from what we all went through, all 7 billion human beings on this earth went through really a hard time. And I hope it's over now and never happens again. And so please, every day, include that in your prayers, that sentient beings never have to go through any kind of suffering, not only a pandemic kind of suffering, but any kind of suffering, that all beings should be free of all suffering and be connected to the cause of happiness. Okay, so then let's do a supplication to Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Om Nazi Nam Daraji Nudupe, Tashi Chhoje Jubayi, Sangi Chodangi Dup. Kuna Chasa Tasha, Tashi Shu, de Mejapo, Sitan Tunduku, Champion Bagata Patampa, Kuna Gomboji. Lumbudarbazara Bedani, Simjetam Jalakung to Pepe, Yizum the Batserap Tapalte, Suzum to Bediship. The worship by Gala Chasalo, Jambation, Patendo Jizing, Cherizum Gomboji Pepe, saying you put. Nimginu Bopa Jokunduzang, Ubeduji, Pega Lushinda, Nubuda water to Nimai, Chasalanum. Chanju Sempai Gela, Chasalo, Rinjindu Tashi Serginia, the Jubuzayum Kamana, Yenda Dunda Buz. Menu Gese, when you're called the Rinjinda Joji, Chadanjay, Chidu Yawa, Chujingama, Gisango. Tashi Lamo Gela, Chasalo, Sambashimbo de Jung Semebu, McDonald Yabu Yubusu, Pajabudano. Nam Tizia Lazo Golodan, the Joladan, Hundo Jizin, be wanted to think in the Sasumnasu. Jidin Gawagala Chasalo, Daji Tinder Chawa Zumbala, Gidan Yawar Sawa Kunjini, to do Pepe Sumdu. Yishin Drup Tashi Dele Pusum Sabar Show, Daji Tinder Chawaz. Gidan Yawar Sawa Kunjini, to do Pepe Sumdu Yishin Drup Tashi Dele Pusum. Daji Tinder Chawa Zumbala, Gidan Yawar Sawa Kunjini, to do Pepe Sumdu Yishin. Tashi Dele Pusum So Parasho. Jizun Pamaduma Kikeno, Jidan Dunge Gune Capto Sol, Jizun Pamaduma Kikeno, Jidan Dunge Gune. Jizun Pamaduma Kikeno, Jidan Dunge Gune Sol, Jizun Pamaduma Kikeno, Jidan Dunge Gule, Capto Sol. Tumnanda Paragumbo Jizun Jabe Yana Chazalo, Kangilu, Dinuitin, Nidan Darzabe, Chingati Chizi, Nikutu. Manda Zebezara Mare, Mundungu Gizabe, Dozoguna, Pujita, Yanaji, and so, Dutrashiro, Munino, Legacies. Mare Musa Dunguinu, Chingi Jose Ratinam, the Nisa Jisaju, the Nisa Gisit. Chudajuna Jungi, Talon Musi, Champrianadi, or Marabzanadi, Marabzanadi. Marabzanadi, Marabzanadi, Marapanadi, Marapanadi, Marapanadi. Marapanadi, 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 Marapanadi. Marapanadi, 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 Marapanadi. Marapanadi, Kurgum the Deji Changipa, Ubetana, Sherabratinum, Legmazimage. Gumbo Jambayana, Chansa, Concertabar the Bomb, Jose Tiver. Gumbo Jimmy, King me, Parian Tomar show. So tonight, our Thursday's meditation, and I think we should all feel so fortunate that we can do this session together or daily as an individual in our own homes. How fortunate we are to be born as a precious human body and then met the Dharma and able to have all our faculties clear and undamaged, our eyes, our ear, our mouth, speech, all those functions or faculties without damage. Even we know it's temporarily, it's impermanent. Whoever is born has to die. But nevertheless, right now we are all alive, and as much as we went through a pandemic situation, but still we have survived those obstacles. And so therefore we are very fortunate to be able to preserve this precious human body. Extremely fortunate. We cannot take this situation as granted because nothing happens without cause. And we have put each and every one of us, first of all, as a human being, to be born as a human being. We have put a lot of causes and conditions to be able to have this body, a body which constitutes intelligence, which constitutes tremendous possibility that we can use it for the right cause and achieve ultimate happiness and transcend from this cyclic existence. That possibility only comes with the having a human body. And then within human beings, though we are all human beings, but everyone has different karma and different fortune, merit. Some, even they are born as human, and even they have the karma to actually, if they want to, they can practice Dharma. They may have the resources to practice Dharma. But due to certain lack of merit, again, that they didn't connect with the Dharma, they didn't connect with compassion, and needless to say, and without saying what I mean, not needless to say, but without saying, not able to connect with the prajna, the wisdom, so therefore they linger in samsara, in bewilderment, and once this human karma is exhausted, like birth, old age, sickness, death, and when a completion of life, when death occurs, then it's more like the chapter close. And chapter close as a human body, as a human being, but chapter doesn't close as a sentient being because our consciousness doesn't die. Consciousness is not an object, it's inanimate, it's not animate, inanimate. It keeps going on like a river, continuity. And we all experience that continuity every day. You carry on your emotions and your thoughts like like a stream has been flowing from day before, it was passed to yesterday, yesterday passed today. Today we know, you're not going to suddenly forget who you are. Your consciousness carry on your emotions, and that continuity keeps going. You know for sure after the meditation session you will go, have some tea or talk to your friends and family as who you are, as a continuity in your awareness, in your consciousness. So mind doesn't die. But mind is not something you can see as an object, like a piece of metal or piece of wood, or with a shape or with a color. It's beyond color and beyond shape, but it continues holding all those images in your mind, in your awareness. That's how, mind continues, and when the mind continues, it follows whatever the causes and conditions, the seed that we have planted in this lifetime. So there's a general saying that what you will become in the future is what you're doing now. And what you are now is what you've done in the past. So there's a saying, you don't need prophecy or someone to tell you what's going to happen to you in the future, because what's going to happen to you in the future is what you're doing now. And what you are now is what you've done in the past. So therefore, the karma, the deeds, karma is a Sanskrit word, but actually in English we can call the deeds, action and reaction, cause and effect, is a continuity. Whatever positive emotion you plant in your mind, or negative emotion you plant in your mind, and those habits continues, carries on in the stream of your mind, unceasing. So like yesterday was past today, and today is past tomorrow. So it carries on. And then we have, since immemorial time, we have accumulated so many karmas, isn't it? We did. And we can clearly see that we have accumulated so many karmas of all kinds, not necessarily positive, but also a lot of negative. And how we can see that is when we look into our mind, we have ignorant, we have ego, grasping mind, attachment, aversion, jealousy, envy, hatred, and all kinds of afflictive emotion, which all arises what is known as misconstrued intelligence, the ignorant. Ignorance simply doesn't mean like blackout. If it's that simple, there would be probably less of a karma. There will still be a karma of a blackout. But now, misconstrued intelligence, it creates all kinds of phenomenal thoughts, ideas such as chaos, destructions. We have seen what human beings can do, such as what Hitler did, destructions. But so much suffering during Second World War. How many millions of people died? How many were separated? Not only the death, how much they suffer in fear. So unimaginable. That's human mind. The power of misconstrued intelligence means very deep. And also, we may not be doing on that scale, but don't count on it that we may not do something like that if we do not eliminate this ignorant and ego and afflictive emotion. The possibility is there. In a succession of lifetimes, when all those causes and conditions comes together, we can also become a demon like that. And we have seen a number of demons. I'm talking human beings, which is more scary than ghost. The ghost can't do like that. They could have destructive things here and there, but to scale like killing millions and millions of people and starvation and suffering, unimaginable. Only a human condition can do like that. So therefore, just because one is born as a human being, and just because you have pretty much lived like not you've lived a wealthy life, you've lived a luxurious life, and you've lived a life kind of in a very normal person life, let's say, and then when you chapter the close, doesn't mean that now you will be always remaining in a normal stream of consciousness, that your life will be normal. Not necessarily. Because all it does is trigger of your one past karma to come about in front of you. And when that ripens, whether it's good or whether it's bad, it can create a complete unfolding of that, whatever that karma is. Can be very bad, or can be very good, or can be medium, depends on the causes and condition. Therefore, samsara, when you think about the nature of samsara, it's scary. Nature of samsara is so deep. And one of the most scariest part of the samsara is not outside. We may say like some dictator or some tyrant can create, so much suffering. And yes, they do create so much suffering. But that's temporal. Maybe they take your life, as Shantideva says, there's a quotation in the Bodhicharya Avatara teaching. What can your enemy do the most harm to you? The most your enemy can do is take your life. One lifetime. But what your affliction, emotion, and your ignorance can do for life after life after life after life puts you in the dungeon of samsara. It's your biggest enemy. So we really have to see the very root of samsara. It's our confused mind, our ignorance, and ego and afflictions are manifestation of that ignorance. And it's so powerful. It is so powerful. It creates unending cycle of all kinds of situation, unceasing day and night, 24 hours. Trapped in our all sorts of emotion, trapped into our aggression, trapped into our jealousies, trapped into our envies. In brief, even the so-called good human being, unless directly, I think one of the important things of, as is said in the Buddha Dharma, inward. Buddha Dharma generally is called inward. Always look to your own mind. And for me, one of the very powerful, pointing out directly the nature of ego is, since we all have ego, and of course, inherently, ego is like definitely it's delusion, no question of that. It seems to be there, but in actuality, it's not there. Egolessness state is the ultimate essence, the basic goodness. But until we realize this egolessness state or ultimate basic goodness, we are trapped in our mind with this ego. So then, for example, if you look into your own mind, how is this ego functioning? When you look, when you go around in the, you look at your neighbors, where you have some kind of settling, grounded, you can call grounded, or some kind of settling situation. So, maybe now, when you first come, not so much. When you first move to an area, to a new house, a new place, not so much. But then you live for like 1 month, you live 2 months, 3 months, time goes by, 6 months, year, few years. Then you begin to know your neighbors, and then you have some kind of opinions about your neighbors. And most of the opinions are, the neighbor, this is good, but that's not good. This is how he should be, she should be. We have all kinds of opinions. And many times then, if your neighbor has something nicer, you begin to feel like, how did she got that? How did he got that? And we have some kind of opinions. And if it's equal to us, we get competitiveness. My neighbor has that, I should also get that. My neighbor makes their garden nicer, I should also plant some trees or something. Always like competitiveness. That's grasping mind. Then, if it's high something, your neighbor suddenly build like, incredible mansion, then you feel, this is too much in my neighborhood. They shouldn't do like that, or whatever. You feel jealous. And if it's something lower than you, you kind of look down. It's typical nature of ego, how it does all the time, Like if you go out, if you see something somebody has much nicer than what you have, sense of jealousy or competitiveness or looking down. That's how we are trapped. So this afflicting emotion, it brings suffering all the time. Even your outside enemies cannot do that, where the suffering inside, this inside enemy is the real enemy. What it can do is even outside enemy cannot do that. They don't have the power to do that to you. Only your own confused mind has the power to put you in this dungeon of samsara, pulling your legs all the time, never let you go up, never let you free. And that's why, we have to recognize this inner enemy. As long as we don't recognize, the problem with the people, majority of the people, they don't recognize this enemy. They're enslaved by this, in fact. They don't realize they're slave, but they're slave by their emotions. They're slave by their aggression, they're slave by their jealousy, they're slave by their envy. Even they don't want that. Nobody wants to be slave. Nobody wants to feel jealous. Nobody wants to feel envy. But that's the negative nature of afflictive emotion, that it traps you, enslaves you, and you have no power. You're powerless. And then the result is continuous suffering, uncertainty, suffering of all kinds, physical suffering, mental suffering, unimaginable suffering. And that is the real samsara. That is the actual samsara. Our inner confusion and trap is the real samsara. So when we are talking about cutting the life force of samsara, that is striking on that ignorance and on that its phenomena, ignorance and its phenomena. We are cutting the life force of that. And how can we do that? Yes, we can do that, because inherently we have enlightened nature, basic goodness, compassion, wisdom. We can experience that. It's not something out of this world or something imagination. It's an actual thing we can experience. And when we experience that through our practice of sadhana, through our practice of meditation, through a practice of tonglen, or whatever we do, we can overwhelm that. Like we can conquer that. Instead of being conquered by it, our bodhicitta mind will conquer our afflictive emotion. then we can, through the union of compassion and wisdom, we can cut the life force of dualistic nature of samsara. Then it is possible, very clearly we can do that. And for that, in order, even logically, logically, when we look into it, what will require to counteract ego is compassion. Warm-heartedness means compassion. Compassion. And compassion doesn't make conditions. You see, it can be like, compassion can be like, from the point of view, some very rational person, compassion can be sometimes, why are you doing that to her or to him? You just don't, it doesn't require any condition. Your warm-heartedness reach out to everyone, rich or poor or middle, or powerful or less powerful or no power. It reaches out to everyone. It has its own sort of life, and it speaks its own language, not the language of rational. If someone is nice to me, then I will only be nice to that. And if someone is not nice to me, I won't be nice. That's the ordinary worldly thinking. But compassion just transcends those worldly logic or worldly thinking. It just reaches out. Who needs warm, you give warm. Who needs cool, you give cool. And then you move forward. And in that way, we are able to gradually reduce the strength of ego, and then we are able to cut the life force of samsara, the rational samsara. So it's very important, practice Tonglen. Extremely important. Please do Tonglen. I request all of you to do Tonglen. Before you start meditation, in fact, in your home, first of all, do some Tonglen practice. Have your mind get supple instead of that hardcore ego. Everything is judged based on what you get in return. And then your ego gets firmer and firmer and stronger. And there's no gentleness, there's no joy, there's no sense of humor at all in that ego mind. So, do the Tonglen practice. Doing Tonglen practice benefit, your mind can get gentle, your mind can get supple, and then finally you can also see great sense of humor coming out of your mind. Because that harsh judgment mind of ego no longer exists. Then you see the world in a very different way. Everything is possible. Hard judgment mind, nothing is possible. Everything is so hard, deadly serious. So we lose sense of humor. So through the Tonglen practice, through meditation practice, when you do it right way, doesn't mean that now you do Tonglen, and you just do it. It's like, I just have to do it. That shouldn't be like that. You've got to do it genuine. Whatever you do in life, do it genuine, 100%. If you do Dharma practice, do it 100%. Then you will see a success coming in that. But while you're doing Tonglen practice, your mind is distracted, you're not going to see benefit of that. While you're sitting meditation, your mind is distracted, again, you're not going to see the benefit of meditation practice. You have to be there and complete. So Tonglen practice is extremely important for healing. All kinds of our mental suffering comes from the ego and ignorance. And Tonglen practice is striking that ignorance and ego, and naturally your mind will transform. So please do Tonglen practice. Whenever, in fact, you can do that as a medicine. When you feel like a lot of emotional pain, suffering, just do some Tonglen. Even it may be hard, but you can do Tonglen to yourself, first of all. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to take the suffering and pain of the other people, but you can feel compassion to yourself, do Tonglen on yourself. That, wow, I have been in this samsara for so long, yet my mind is still uncontrollable, going after so much aggression and like that. You feel compassion to yourself. And that's okay. That's very good. You recognize it, and now you're just not running away. You're seeing finally what's causing this. And that recognition itself is very powerful. So you can do Tonglen on yourself, and then you do Tonglen on others. It will change your mind. It will transform your mind. Bring you joy, happiness, peace. And then once you have done the Tonglen, then the next stage you go to sitting practice. Then in sitting practice, all kinds of thoughts, whatever it arises, emotions, compassion or non-compassion, you don't try to, you see them all like just mere thoughts. They're just mere thoughts. Because if you try to, during sitting practice of meditation, oh, this is a compassionate thought, and this is special, then again your ego will take the credit. Oh, I'm good now, I'm doing good, I'm a compassionate person. You see, ego is hard to detect. Ego comes behind so many masks. It comes in the spiritual mask. It has so many tricks. So what you do in meditation, whether it's trying to act as compassionate or not, the opposite of compassion, you treat all of them equal. You just look into its nature and it will dissolve. They all arises from your mind and they will dissolve in your mind because you have the awareness at that time. But if you don't have the awareness, you don't have mindfulness, then again your mind will be sucked into those emotional state, and then dualistic game will continue. So awareness is very important in meditation practice. All you have to do, just sit and watch. Good thoughts come, bad thoughts come. Good you don't try to bring in, accept the good, and bad you try to reject. That's not what meditation is. You try to do accepting goods and rejecting bads, then you are under the influence of ego again. The ego is playing the game. So you just treat both equally. No big deal. It's like, don't love your mind too much. Sort of something like that. Oh, I love my mind. Sometimes I see some Hollywood people say, oh, I love myself. Or not necessarily Hollywood too. Anyone can say, oh, I love myself. I like myself. I love myself. Of course, there's some problem in whoever claims to do that, they will have the problem of ego, because ego gives pain all the time at the end of the day. So your awareness is free, but your grasping mind is what gives you pain and suffering. And when you look, the nature of the mind is free. So remain in that through the simple method of meditation, breathing meditation at this point, shamatha, calm abiding. So you're learning already to go deeper and deeper into awareness through the shamatha meditation. Tonglen makes your mind gentle. It creates the proper ground. And then meditation brings you the awareness. Something like that. So I thought that's what I'd like to share with you tonight. And it's also very important as a Dharma practitioner. I've, in my past teaching, I have emphasized a lot on dependent origination teaching. And please reflect on those, look back into those. Because all those teaching, our Tonglen practice, our shamatha meditation practice, and teaching on the knowledge of dependent origination, it all help us finally to transcend ego and to realize the true awareness, clear light, our basic goodness, true nature. And if you have lack of understanding and no realization of that wisdom, of awareness, then every step you take will be a confused step in the world, in your life. We say in order for a good building to construct, you need a good foundation. Then it can carry on the load of all the multiple levels. It can carry like 100-story because the foundation is good. So every floor is built up, is able to hold itself well. And that comes from the point of view of the Dharma practitioner, is the awareness. If you have some good understanding of the nature of shunyata, the nature of wisdom, prajna, then your compassion will function in the right way. But if your foundation, which is in the terms of metaphor I'm using, the foundation, in the terms of actual prajna, the awareness, if you don't have the awareness, then the second step you take, which is compassion, of course, wisdom is the basic ground, and then the compassion is the expression of that. But if the foundation is wrong, then the expression is wrong. So if instead of the foundation, the prajna, of shunyata, emptiness, if your foundation is ego, exactly. If your foundation is ego, what kind of compassion do you think it will arise? A tainted compassion. In the best you can have is a tainted compassion. Yes, I like to help. But you try to help, and if the person say, your help is not good enough, then you get immediately, get angry, or your aggression comes up. So you lost your compassion. Because the first step you got wrong, then the second step you get wrong, and the third and the fourth and the fifth, then it's continuously wrong, where is tainted with ego. The ego is like the judge, not the wisdom is the judge. So ego, and of course, at the beginning it will be like that. No one can just suddenly jump into prajna and into union of wisdom and compassion, into absolute clear light. It's not possible. Because due to us so much obscurations, emotions, afflictions that we have habituated into that, it will take time for it to purify. But what I'm saying, please study, reflect, and meditate. And then step by step by step, you will come to your ground your own awareness. You realize your awareness, then you realize yourself, then Buddha Dharma is complete. Buddha Dharma is nothing else to tell you. You need to realize your union of wisdom and compassion. Transcend all duality. That is the Buddha Dharma. That is you, their true nature. So therefore, our daily practice is so important for us to move forward. And those who are doing Ngondro practice, you are going deeper into the refuge, bodhicitta, then finally to Guru Yoga, step by step by step. But then those who are not doing Ngondro, those who are doing sitting meditation practice, and those who are doing Tonglen practice, that is extremely important. You need to carry on your life with that. It's your life force. So think about it. Neither you have Tonglen practice, nor you have shamatha. Where is your mind then? Who's going to help your mind? How can you help yourself? This ego and affliction didn't help. In fact, every day is getting stronger, and every day is making your life more miserable and chaos and suffering. Now, if you don't do these two things, Tonglen and meditation, who is there to help you? Finally, you have to help yourself. Even Buddha said, I've shown you the path of liberation, now it's up to you. You don't do meditation, you don't do Tonglen, you don't change your mind. Who can do that for you? No one can do it. When you came in this world, you came alone. And when you go from this world, you have to go alone. No one will accompany you. What will accompany you is your mind. And if your mind is transformed, is transcended from ignorance, the liberation is there right now in your mind. So therefore, please do Tonglen practice, sitting practice, whatever your practice is, keep your awareness, keep your, mindfulness every day. Then you will see the beauty and joy and liberation and happiness. Okay, thank you. So let's do sitting practice now.
Rinpoche, would you give some brief instructions on the practice of Tonglen?
Tonglen practice, is in many, many texts. Explanation is one of the main practice of Bodhisattva practice, Bodhisattvayana practice. In the 7 points of mind training, there's an explanation on the Tonglen practice. In Bodhisattva teaching, there's an explanation and teaching on the Tonglen practice. Now, in brief, Tonglen practice is Tong means in Tibetan to send. Tongwa means sending, and Tonglenpa means taking. So the main thing here is striking the ego itself. Because normally we take all the profit to ourselves, which is the nature of the ego, to take all the good things to yourself and to discard all the bad things away. We throw things away like a garbage. So what we do that in life, take all the victory to oneself and give all the defeat to others, which is the nature of the ego. And by doing that, what has happened, it has put us in samsara. I think that's the first thing we need to recognize. That listening to the ego and following the ego, it has brought nothing but suffering and pain to us. And then further, when we go look at the nature of the ego, the grasping mind, the clinging mind, is fundamentally, fundamentally, is devoid of inherent existence, but not realizing that ego is devoid of inherent existence, then we got trapped in so-called ego. To what? To our mind. So now we need to study a little bit about the mind. Now, what is the definition of mind? Definition of mind is Mashe Dunkowa, one who can speak and one who can understand, Saljing Rigpa, or the definition of mind is Saljing Rigpa. Salwa means clarity and Rigpa means knowing, aware. That's the definition of mind. Now, so we can say, here's the mind, for example, this is the mind, which is the nature of the mind's characteristic is clarity and knowing, Saljing Rigpa, to know. So, that is more like its basic characteristic is like that, but then it has two aspects now. We can kind of divide into two aspects. One is the confused aspect and one is the unconfused aspect. An unconfused aspect we would call wisdom and awareness. And of course, there is also awareness in ego's mind, in the confused mind. You're aware of it, but you're aware in the wrong way, And that the wrong conceptualization which take form, which take place, is called ego. Because for ego is a awareness, misconstrued awareness here. Ego comes without a mind. There cannot be an ego. Stones and clothes and mountains and water do not have ego because it has no mind. Therefore, we call it inanimate. animate and inanimate. Animate is one which has consciousness. So anyone which has consciousness, there's a confused part when we look into the mind, and there's an unconfused part when we look into the mind. So ego is like, as we call, misconstrued intelligence. Intelligence, mind's nature is intelligence, but intelligence going in the wrong way. Moment the intelligence gone in the wrong way, wrong direction, and it has formed its own kind of identity, which is based on totally facade ground. And that facade ground, the facade ground, how it takes its shape, is based on insecurity. And that's the nature of ignorance. Ignorance, the display of ignorance, because ignorance is like a hollow, it doesn't really have any valid ground or valid reality. It is completely based on facade nature, which is called kunzop in Tibetan, or like, I guess the English word relative is not really, not even come close. Kun zop. Kun means all. Zop means like completely facade. It's like a kind of a flat facade thing. Because you hold on to that facade, because simply the nature of ignorance. It's simply the nature of ignorance. And we can call that insecurity. Because here, the insecurity comes with the notion of awareness now, mind. So when the minds get it wrong, then it gets wrong. And that wrong is an experience. And therefore is called misconstrued intelligence. There's an intelligence. Only intelligence can give you an experience. Only in intelligence, when it goes wrong, it can give you insecurity. It's based on insecurity. Therefore, it's called misconstrued intelligence, which, like inanimate, like a mountain and trees and rocks, do not have that insecurity because they don't have a mind, they don't have awareness. So therefore, you see, the moment the mind is built on insecurity, then what is known as ego, mind, the ego is an experience. Ego is a grasping mind. You see, it grasps. You have a notion of grasping. You want clinging. And there's a notion connected with that. All kinds of clinging. And then the moment that insecurity is built up, what is known as ego, then it's so fearful that it just tries to protect itself. It tries to keep its territory, or keep its ground, or keep its fencing and territory. That's what is the insecurity ground or insecurity territory, because it's afraid of losing it. That's the nature of ignorance. You know, if it's fearless, if it's based on true reality, where there's no misconstrued intelligence, then there will be no insecurity. If there is no insecurity, it will be utterly open. It will shine through. The reason it doesn't shine through, because it's afraid of losing its ground constantly. And what it is when you look is afraid of you. There's nothing you can find. It's just like a trap. We call trap, exactly that's the word. We got trap in that. Then whatever, everything your mind begin to manifest. All emotions become affliction, because now the ground is, as earlier I was talking, the foundation or the ground got wrong, so everything is like a facade built up. So therefore, everything is contradictory, everything is problematic. Affliction arises because of that now misconstrued intelligence. Affliction, intelligence, misconstrued intelligence of pride, misconstrued intelligence of jealousy, misconstrued intelligence of, all the rest of passions and neurosis, all misconstrued intelligence, because it gives you, it plays with you, it plays with your mind. So therefore, then neuroses are built up, and as a result, the experience of neurosis brings suffering, because it's got wrong from the beginning. So therefore, now how do we get rid of that is now, working with that insecure mind. And that is by knowing through the Dharma, through the teaching, through the knowing that, Buddha gave the Four Noble Truths. And then here in particular, that when we, through the Dharma, we come to understand that really, even our temporal happiness, our relative happiness, comes from the affection and love from others. Not just, we tend to think that, I'm going to survival of the fittest. It doesn't work that way. There's no thing survival of the fittest. Everything is dependent on others. Our happiness comes from others and many other factors. There's no such thing as called survival of the fittest without depending on some other factors. It's all dependent nature. There's no independent thing. But it makes us believe, the ego makes us believe and think that it's an independent character, it's an independent nature, that I can rule the world. And, so therefore, like Hitler, for example, he tried to change the world, and finally when he couldn't succeed, then he killed himself. That's how ego does. Finally, ego is a suicidal thing. When it kind of ran out of ideas and methods and way out, then it's like suicidal thoughts. It's harakiri, Japanese harakiri. That's the ego's nature. So now, then how do we work with that insecurity? Is by knowing that everything is dependent. Our temporal, let's not talk about the enlightenment which comes through the practice of infinite compassion and, infinite for immeasurable 6 parameters, infinite, practice of bodhicitta, compassion to beings for infinite time, infinite beings, fearless of that. But even our temporal day-to-day, our enjoying a cup of coffee, or, even a laugh we get, even a smile we get, it comes from, others' love, affection, interdependent. Then we begin to see, wow, the notion, I was so wrong that I think everything starts by my own sense of ego, like survival of the fittest. That's the wrong way. Then you begin to see, as much as you get joy from others, you begin to give to others. Then you can really see how things heal, how things open up, how you feel joy. That's how, then you begin to take the, starting with your mother and your father, those who are kind to you, take their sense of suffering to yourself and give your joy to them, like taking others' suffering in the color of black, charcoal-like. And truly, if my mother, who has been so kind to me, who's given me so much, right now, if I can relieve a little bit of her suffering, let me take that, like, you taking her suffering in the form of dark light, dark thing, dark color into you, and you're positive energy and your wisdom and healing into white nectar like to her, and exchanging like that. Then you feel like, when she's happy and free, how joyful you feel. That shows that you're also getting freed. It's not that you're getting dark and you're now somewhere totally lost in darkness. That's not happening because you're happy. You're happy somebody's getting happy, and you're happy somebody's getting free and liberation. There's a clarity in your mind, not darkness in your mind. And then you get more and more, and then you begin to take more others, those who are suffering. And then, all sentient being, you begin to take their suffering and give joy because your wisdom is so clear at that time. And so that's how you come out of that insecure ego's world, and then begin to see the true awareness, finally, liberation from all phenomena, dualistic phenomena. So something like that.
Thank you, Rinpoche. One question from James. Should we practice taking and giving of different symptoms? For example, pain for comfort, fear for courage, etc., or is it best to just go right to the cause and take ignorance and give realization?
When you do Tonglen, there's no limit. You can take as much as each person's, have different kind of phenomenal experience. You can take all kinds of, others. If my kind parents being, it says the amount of life we have taken is infinite. There's no number. In fact, all being has been our parents one time or another. And when they have been our parents one time or another, they have given infinite love and care and compassion, no limit, like our own present mother and father, how much they've given. So therefore, whatever your mother sentient beings, and being those who are suffering, if you can relieve them from their suffering, even you have to, actually spend like a next billion years in a hell realm. If I can take all the negative karma, if they are free and liberated, how much joy, happiness, you can imagine, I'll be very happy. That's already shows your basic goodness, nature of each and every sentient being. Even you couldn't do it, but the thought and idea, really, if all the 7 billion human beings, an immeasurable being, if they can be all freed and have joy, you feel a sense of joy right away. That's a sense of basic goodness within us. So you can do anything.
That's all, Rinpoche.
Okay.
No more questions.
Thank you. All right, so please do Tonglen and sitting practice. And now let's dedicate the merit. In the world in general, and in this nation, may not even the names, disease, famine, war, and suffering be heard. May virtuous qualities and merit and prosperity greatly increase, and may continuous good fortune and sublime well-being perfectly rise. In the world in general, and in this nation, may not even the names, disease, famine, war, and suffering be heard. May virtuous qualities and merit and prosperity greatly increase, and may continuous good fortune and sublime well-being perfectly rise. In the world in general, and in this nation, may not even the names, disease, famine, war, and suffering be heard. May virtuous qualities and merit and prosperity greatly increase, and may continuous good fortune and sublime well-being perfectly rise. By this merit, may all beings gain omniscience, thus defeat the neurosis
and negative actions
which are the enemies. From the turbulent waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death,
from the ocean of cyclic existence, may all beings be liberated.
When you do that, you can focus to the prayer of Manjushri, like Jambal Chidar Kembatang. As the Bodhisattvas, Manjushri, and 8th grade Bodhisattvas, Lokeshwara, all of the Bodhisattvas living in the 10 directions, as they have dedicated, this merit for the enlightenment of all, as they have dedicated their merit for the enlightenment of all being, I likewise dedicate the merit for the enlightenment and happiness of all beings. Then it's become very powerful. Okay? Thank you very much. Good night and take care and love you all. Thank you. Okay.